Hi there, everybody. Welcome to season 2, episode 2 of PocaTV Live, coming to you live from Poca. My special guest this month is thought and life innovator, activist, and poet Kimberly McCrae, formerly known as Kimberly Gaubault. It's going to be quite a ride, people. Let's get going.
Give me this. Give me that. Give me this. Give me that.
So, hi again, everybody. Welcome to this program. You know, it's every last Friday of the month that I go live with one of my fabulous friends across the globe who do wonderful stuff that you and I can actually, learn from. My name is Poca, or Aldith, depending on how you know me, how long you've known me. Poca now stands for People of Common Attitude. But when it was given to me, that nickname 20 years ago by my friend Corey Reed here in Jamaica, it was actually stood for Pocahontas because that was pre-dreadlocks. And he thought I looked like Pocahontas. So Poca stuck. Very easy, short name, especially when you're traveling. And I had to find another meaning for it. So now I say it stands for People of Common Attitude, which is you, lovely people, the people watching and the people catching the reruns, people watching my old videos on Poca TV, all about reggae and Rasta and travels. And, whatever way you call me, I will answer. Yes, it is season 2, episode 2 of this lovely program. Who would have known that I would be still doing this now when I started out more than a year ago? Lovely. I'm loving the reaction. So if you feel so inclined, do leave a comment today, whether or not you are watching live. My guest, as I was telling you very shortly, is thought and life innovator and activist and poet and so much more, Kimberly McCrae, formerly known as Gaubault. We will not get into that too deeply. She is reclaiming the name McCrae, and of course, we respect and love her for that. So thanks for joining. And while you're here, why not subscribe to the YouTube channel or like the Facebook page? All of this for the clout that I once hoped to have with this program and the other stuff that I do. People who watch... Oh, there went my little angel. It's a breezy day here in Jamaica, and my little angel just fell on her face. I hope that doesn't mean bad news for me the rest of this month. I don't think so. Let her be. She's all right where she is. You okay, little angel? She's telling me she's all right. She's taking a nap now. People who regularly watch this program know that I dedicate every single episode of Poca TV Live to my youngest sister, Aisha, who left this earth 11 years ago. She was sick. She had cancer. And, this is a picture of when she was already sick. I remember the day she came to me and asked me to cut off her very long dreadlocks because she was in chemo. And, dreadlocks really isn't a great idea if you're doing that. So we made quite a ceremony of it. We put on some lovely reggae music and we chanted together, and I religiously took off her dreadlocks. And to be honest, these two dreadlocks are hers. I attached them to one of mine. And they are very different in structure from my own hair, so I can always find them easily. These are Aisha's dreads. I wear them with pride. And I like to say that she's the one who inspired me to ever start this. And way, way, way before going live online was actually an option. So yes, yet again, another episode of Poca TV Live, livicated to Aisha, never forgotten. Welcome also to the people watching the rerun. You might be new here, so let me tell you what this is. This is a monthly program every last Friday of the month. I talk to one of the people I know from my many travels, and people usually with high intellect. Otherwise, I get bored with them. So they have a real story to tell, a story that I can learn from, a story that you can learn from. And if you don't want to learn, it's still a good story they have to tell. So, yes, last month, I had another one of those friends, and I always show a little clip of what they were up to in this program last month. Last month, it was my friend Tarek Msadek, whom I met when I lived in Tunisia. We both frequented the French school of Mutuelleville in the capital city of Tunis. And he's actually the one who helped me out when I had to learn French because he too speaks English. He is now a molecular biologist and he works at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, where he leads, a research department. And I was asking about, COVID times. Western countries seem to think it is over now because we have something new. We've got war going on in Europe. So COVID is over in Europe, but it isn't really in the rest of the world. So I asked Tarek, who of course knows about these things, whether or not humanity is lost because of a pandemic. And he was quite clear with his answer. This is what he had to say.
Humanity is not lost. Humanity has faced dozens of challenges throughout the ages, from the plague to Spanish flu to et cetera, that have wiped out much more people than COVID. COVID is just, the only problem with it is one of the things that's revealed to me is that the social media really spread fake rumors like wildfire, and people, since the beginning of social media, have become they believe what they see or hear on in videos or on social media, and they lose their common sense often, and so it leads to unfortunately a sort of a generalized dumbing down of people's thinking.
Does that in any way sound familiar to you? A general dumbing down of people's way of thinking? I must say, I agree 100% with what Tarek Msadek had to say about this phenomenon. So that's all the regular things done for the beginning of the show. Time to bring out my guest for today. She is actually from Montego Bay in Jamaica, where I am currently residing, but she's joining us from the United States of America. I believe North Carolina, which is where she lives and works now. Let's welcome her. Here is Kimberly McCrae. Good morning to you, Kim.
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you? It's an honor to be here.
It's lovely to have you with me, Kim, because you and I actually don't know each other really well personally, but we do frequent each other online.
Yes.
And we did meet once live, which we will touch on later. But actually, I know most of you from what I see on your online outings, and I've been watching a couple of things that you do online, because you do a lot of stuff online these days, don't you?
I do. Yes.
Yes. I introduced you as a thought and life innovator, an activist, and a poet. I know I'm not complete. Anything that I really should add to that list?
I want to add that I'm a grandma. I'm a grandma. I'm getting ready to be a 3-time grandma. I have a grandbaby on the way next month.
Next month, and you've got 2 already. I'm gathering from this. Well, congratulations on that. That is blessings coming your way, I'm sure. And we will show a little bit of your personal life way at the end of the program, but we've got a lot to catch up on, Kim. So, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. I'm going to start. I always ask my guests to send me some pictures that are relevant to their life. And you send me, for starters, this one, which will take us back into your own heritage. Tell us who we are seeing and what her role is in your life.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because I'm looking at my face next to this picture. It's uncanny. So this is my grandmother. Yes, this is my grandmother, my father's mother. Her name was Se02E02.
Se02E02, right.
Yes.
So that's why you're reclaiming the name.
Yes.
Yeah. So what did your grandmother mean in your life? Why did you find it so important to send me her picture?
I have been told that I have a spirit very similar to hers. I was always in awe of her. She passed away when I was 12 years old, but I was always in awe of her. Just how when she came in a room, she commanded attention. And I don't know if she even knew that, but just the way she carried herself, she commanded attention. Like you couldn't help but see that she had come in the room and feel that she was in the room.
And was she the quiet present type or the loud present type?
She was the quiet present type unless you crossed her.
Those are the dangerous ones. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you by any chance remember any conversations that you had with her before she died? Anything that stuck with you from what she had to say in life?
I don't remember any deep conversations. It was more the way that she was with me as opposed to conversations and things like that. She always had candy. She always had candy. These peppermints. She had a bowl of peppermints that she kept on her table, her coffee table, in the living room. And she always dressed very, I loved the way she dressed. She wore heels and she would wear her hats. Yes, exactly. The pinky up kind of, so it was more about the way she carried herself than anything that she said specifically.
Right. And you were saying just now that you saw the resemblance between the two of you. What of her stature would you say you inherited?
I definitely see in this area of my face, like the eyes and the nose with the two pictures side by side, it was really I had never done that, put the pictures side by side like that, but I really could see her in looking at me. So it was that. And also the fact that I'm very girly. I like jewelry, and she had a lot of costume jewelry. I still have some of her costume jewelry. So she had a lot of costume jewelry and wore heels, and I love wearing heels. And so there's some things that were definitely passed down.
I used to love wearing heels, but I really mush up my feet. So no more heels for me. I know you like nail polish. Show us your nails, please. Oh, wow. Is that your own work or is that somebody else do?
That is my own work, and those are my natural nails too.
They are? Wait, hold on. Maybe pull you up full screen. Show them. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it sticks, right? It doesn't, break off or whatever. Yeah. No, I do my best, but I keep mine short because I'm forever jumping on my roof here or riding my bike. So there's no reason for me to doll up anyway.
Right.
Let's see. Childhood picture. You send me one.
Yes.
This is you and your sister Wanda.
Yes.
Tell us, you were born. I believe it was in Montego Bay. At least you've lived here. No. Where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, I found out recently that my great-great-grandfather on my father's side was from Africa. I need to figure out what part of Africa. That excited me a lot. But I also have heard that I've got roots in Jamaica. Never knew that, but claimed Jamaica as home without ever knowing that.
So you really do not have any Jamaican roots. I just made that up.
Yeah, I live in Jamaica, but no, I do not. Well, I do. I don't know exactly where those roots are, but yeah, I wasn't born in Jamaica though.
I see. So why did you choose Jamaica? Well, I could answer that question, but I want to hear it from you.
I had chosen Jamaica to go on vacation. And while I was on vacation, I met the man that became my husband. So he is a Jamaican national. He lives in Montego Bay, and I joined him in Montego Bay in 2017.
Is this Mr. Gaubault?
Yes, Mr. Gaubault. Yes.
Right. Yes. So you married a Jamaican at some point, and I believe that's over now. We don't need to get into that, but this is why you have this Montego Bay. What do you call it?
Residence.
Yes. Residence. Yes. Yeah. You actually have a home here, like I do. You do, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We should meet up here one time, Kim. Go for lunch.
We have to.
Yes,
we
should.
have
We
to.
should. Yeah, yeah. Let me look quickly in the comments, because there is DJ Conscious, who is one of my regulars, and actually who the very first guest that I had on PocaTV Live. So hi there, DJ. I know you're very busy, so I really, really appreciate it that you're here with us today. Who knows who will join us later, because I believe that one or two of our mutual friends, Kimberly, will be joining, at least watching as well today. So hi there,
Okay.
DJ. Yeah, we'll see. We'll just take it how it comes, right? Because we don't know.
Mhm.
So Wanda and you, how old were you here?
I believe I was around 4. I
Aw.
think I was about 4, and Wanda was 6. She was either
6.
5 or 6, because we're 18 months apart.
Yes. Now that can be, what shall we say, a difficult age difference. Am I saying this diplomatically? Were you
Yes.
close?
We were close when we were younger, and then I have a brother who's 10 years younger than me. So there are 3 of us. I, the middle child, my sister and I were close when we were younger, but as we got older, as some households do, we grew up in a household where we were kind of pitted against each other, put in competition with each other, mainly academically. So it caused some distance between us. So we're not as close now.
I see. Well, that's I'm sorry to hear that, because
Yeah.
family is very important. I know that. Speaking of family, here is my brother, also present. Hi there, Melvin. Hope you're doing well. I know Mom and I have been neglecting you for a while, because we are hiding away in Jamaica forever. I don't even know if I'm going back to Babylon, what with World War III at our doorstep. But lovely to
Right.
see you, Melvin. I know, and there goes DJ Conscious and Melvin already, interacting. Wonderful stuff. I love that when that happens. So everybody enjoy yourselves. This is my friend Kimberly McCrae, and she's got a story to tell. You were mentioning academics just a while ago, and that's the next pictures you send me. This is you graduating, I believe.
Yes.
Tell us
Yes.
about how you went from the little girl we saw earlier to this. What happened in between?
So in between that, I went to school in East Orange, New Jersey, graduated from East Orange High School. For those that know East Orange, New Jersey, there is now a campus high school that encompasses all of the high school students. I went to East Orange High School when it was East Orange High School and Clifford J. Scott High School. So we were the 2 competitive schools there in the area. I was the first student from East Orange High School to ever get accepted to Duke University.
Wow.
So I went to Duke University to do my undergrad. That journey took me 12 years. So when I tell you I have a story, I definitely have a story. So
why did that take so long?
it took that long because I wound up having to leave school for financial reasons. My family couldn't afford to take care of the bills. And when I went home, then I wound up working. I had 2 children, and then I decided to return to school. So I returned to school in 1996 with 2 small children in tow, and I finished undergrad in 2000. And when I finished undergrad, when I graduated, I had 3 children and was pregnant with my 4th and escaping an abusive relationship. So yeah, that was a journey. The pictures that you had up there were my graduation from my master's program. I attended Union Theological Seminary and received a Master's of Divinity in theology and the arts, with the concentration in interfaith dialogue and interreligious studies. And I chose these pictures in particular because, and I love the way that you did this. So my arms out, they're kind of pointing at either picture. That's fantastic.
I tried to do something nice with it. Yeah.
So the picture on the left is me with Reverend Dr. Katie Cannon, who was one of the mothers of womanist theology. And the one on the right is me with Dr. James Cone, who was the founder of Liberation Theology.
So from what their, from their titles, I gather these 2 people had an immense impact on your life, on the person you have become now.
Yes.
What did they bring you at a tender age, even if it, you went the long road? but they must have brought you something that opened your mind in some way. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I grew up in the Christian church, specifically in the Pentecostal Christian church. And I never really saw myself positioned in the scripture the way that the Bible was taught to me. And also in the way that that being in the church was reflected to me. So most of the ministers were men. Pastors were men. Women often weren't allowed to stand in the pulpit, weren't allowed to be in the pulpit. So I grew up in a period of time. I'm definitely dating myself by saying all of that. I grew up in a period of time where it was rare to see a Black woman that was preaching in the church or was in a position that represented some kind of leadership other than maybe kitchen ministry or Sunday school or things like that.
Yeah. So what did that make you feel when you were growing up, not seeing that or not even knowing that it could ever be possible? But you must have felt something.
Yeah. So it's funny. There was never a time where I didn't know it was possible. I always knew it was possible, but that for whatever reason, the people that were in leadership didn't want it to happen. So it made me angry. It made me determined. It made me question. Oftentimes I questioned the religion itself, but I also questioned God, because I didn't know how to be in relationship with a God that did not have anything that looked like me, didn't have any way to accommodate anything that looked like me.
Right.
Yeah.
And you coming from this Pentecostal background, that must have brought some turmoil inside. You must have thought,
definitely.
What's the balance between the two?
Yes, definitely. And I was not given room to ask questions. So first of all, children should be seen and not heard. So, right. So I had to keep silent in most spaces. But as far as questioning authority or questioning what was being taught in the church, that was an absolute no. So I didn't have anyone to bring those questions to or have those conversations with until I went to grad school and was introduced to liberation theology and womanist theology. So especially womanist theology, for the first time, I saw where there was an interpretation of biblical scripture that actually had room for all of who I am. So, and it changed me, changed my life.
When you first heard it coming from a professor telling you this is how it is, what did that do to you?
At first, it was exciting, but it was also a little scary, because you can't go back to business as usual when you've come in contact with divinity. So coming in contact with that, I knew that now from this point forward, truth is going to be a dangerous thing, because I have to go back to where I've come from that is saying everything that says that this may not be appropriate, is not acceptable, So yeah, it was challenging. It was a little scary, but I'm always up for a challenge.
Of course you are. And a huge responsibility, I might think, if you go back home and you tell this at home where you were brought up thinking the way you were thinking, I don't think that really they were applauding you when you came home and saying, woman is this and no.
Right. But I think the good thing for me, although I didn't see it as good at the time, I think the good thing for me was I wasn't really tied into being accepted in that space anyway, because I was never fully in agreement with the way that things were being done anyhow. Right. So being rejected, that was fine, but I was still going to speak this new truth that I had come to understand.
I understand. And this is exactly what you started doing. This is a picture of you in action, so to speak. Tell us about this, 2014, Florida, I believe.
Yes, this is, so I worked as the program coordinator for the Duke University Women's Center for 3 years. And during that time, I would take the students, I would take a group of students, somewhere around 12 students maximum, to Florida, Apopka, Florida, and we would do some homestays and do some work and community service with an organization called Hope Community Organization. And they're still there. They're still doing amazing work. The woman that is standing on the left-hand side of the group, that's Sister Ann. Sister Ann is a spitfire. She is amazing. She does activism for the Latinx community in that area, making sure that they are receiving resources, making sure that they're protected, keeping on top of what's happening with ICE, which is, I don't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but that's the U.S. governmental organization that that deals with people that are immigrants.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So I would take these students and we would do homestays and stay with families in Apopka. We would stay with the Latinx families and we would learn about their lives and about how they had to move through community and what it was like to always be in hiding and under fire and all of these things. And it absolutely changed these Duke students. It changed them. It was so incredible.
It must have been empowering in a way, because I'm seeing a lot of mixed backgrounds there. And I know in the United States, your background is still of huge impact. So what do you think? What do you think these stories help these students, and yourself for that matter?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to really drive home, there were two things I wanted to really drive home. One was, when you hear about immigration, these are people with stories and whole lives. These are not numbers, the way that the statistics are always kind of thrown around. We get these numbers when the news is talking about immigration. And the people are not numbers. They are individuals with families and stories and lives that matter. So that was one thing I wanted to drive home. The other thing was, for people that are going into parts of the world and into communities to call themselves helping, you can't help if you can't listen. So I wanted them to understand you have to be in actual relationship with people in order to truly help. Otherwise, it's something else.
Right.
It's not help if you don't know what help looks like to them.
Exactly. That's then you projecting whatever you think people need on somebody.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of that going around, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Moving on now to 2016.
Yes.
Two pictures. Let's start with the one on the left.
So the one on the left this is an amazing group of scholars that I did, I believe it was 3 different conferences with. So this was the National Women's Studies Association conference in Montreal, Canada in 2016. And we started doing presentations together in 2014. So the presentations were centered around the Cinderella myth, around the Disney princess myth. And how this
who needs
Disney
to be saved by something.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And how this myth, even in the ways that Disney was building it out, was still not inclusive. Even when you look at Princess and the Frog, I think that was my favorite one to talk about, because the Black woman she was a princess, she was supposed to be this princess, but she got the short end of the stick. All the other princesses were rich and they lived in a palace, and this woman winds up, she's still working for the rest of her life, but she's princess, So just looking at the ways that those scales are imbalanced, even when we're trying to call ourselves being equal or bringing equity, the scales still wind up being unbalanced.
I remember a couple of years ago when they made a remake of, I don't know the Disney film. What's it called? The one with Ariel.
Oh,
the mermaid.
Yes.
And they cast a Black girl, and the world came to an end that day.
Yeah. It was an uproar, Yeah, it's just really interesting to always see those dynamics and how a lot of times we try and mask those dynamics and cover them up because we want it to look like we're doing something good or we're being inclusive, when in fact it's not necessarily that.
Yes. Let's see here. Annemieke is checking in with us. She says, "See not heard" is what you were saying earlier, children. It's a
Yeah.
familiar thing to her, but so sorry that you grew up in a church that didn't give you space for your questions. That's Annemieke from the Netherlands, and the
Yeah.
Netherlands try to be forward in many things. That too is a cover up, though, but we don't have time for that. And
Right.
ICE, my brother says Immigration and Customs
Yes.
Enforcement.
Thank you. It
Thank you for
escaped
looking
my
that up.
mind.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. The picture on the right, same year, different place, and I know this was a
Yes.
momentous occasion for you.
It was. So this was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with Black Women's Blueprint. This event, we were actually at the Riverside Church in Harlem, New York. And we did a testimony service there, and we also testified at the UN. And the purpose of the event was to share stories from Black women about childhood sexual assault and sexual assault and domestic violence in general.
Specifically,
Because
those topics.
yes.
So why were these topics on top of mind for that gathering?
Because in the U.S. in particular, and I believe it's worldwide, but in the U.S. in particular, Black women's stories are often not heard. They're not heard, they're not shared. Even when you look at the numbers of Black women that go missing every day and every year, we never actually, a lot of times those stories never make it into the media. Those women are never found. The crimes and the atrocities that are enacted against us are not dealt with. And we wanted to create a space where we could put in the public eye some of the things that are often intentionally hidden from the public about Black women in particular.
Yeah. The Black women killed by gunshots in schools aren't even part of the statistics. I know that.
Exactly.
So
even in Black Lives Matter, a lot of times the
yeah.
men are the ones that are, really raised to the forefront, and the women's voices go unheard.
So here you are suddenly with the platform to talk about, well, not your everyday lovely life. You testified. Do you care to elaborate?
Sure. And yeah, it wasn't my everyday lovely life, but it was my everyday life. So for well over 20 years, I was a victim of, and I call it a victim and a survivor, because as we survive certain pieces of the story, sometimes we are still being victimized, and people like to act as if it has to be one or the other. But in order to make room for people's entire realities, you have to make room for people to identify for themselves where they are in that journey. So for over 20 years, I was a victim and survivor of domestic violence that was enacted against me by my two youngest children's father. And that was the first platform on which I publicly said his name. And the program was streamed internationally, and I was nervous. I was very nervous because at the time he was actively threatening me. My children were still at home with me. So of course he had an inroads because our children were still young. So they were still at home. So yeah, it was a really pivotal moment for me, and it was empowering to be able to speak that truth. And for people who had known me for years that didn't know that part of my story, to suddenly hear that part of my story and then start connecting the dots with, so you were living through that while you were doing this. And so the whole time I was finishing up my undergrad degree, I was dealing with the domestic violence. While I was doing my graduate degree, I was dealing with the domestic violence. So all of these different storylines that are happening at the same time, but oftentimes the need to put on the smile and present this polished picture to the world so that people wouldn't know what was happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
One thing, for example, this line in my forehead is not a crease line. You know how we have those crease lines like that? That's not a crease line. He split my head open on the corner of a wall. in one of our interactions. In one of the instances where he violated me, he split my head open on the corner of a wall. So I realized one day in looking in the mirror, my two youngest children have never seen me without this.
Without that.
So
yeah.
that's normal for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to go through this, and how incredibly brave of you to talk about it then and even now.
Thank you.
I'm a moderator of conferences, Kim, you might know, and I've done 2 international conferences on this topic. And the one question that comes up every time is, why do the women not leave?
Oh,
You
there
tell
are
us that.
so many reasons. There are so many reasons. So some women are, well, one thing that people often don't understand is with domestic violence, by the time it reaches the point where it is physical violence, there is a whole spectrum of behavior that has happened and a series of events that have happened that have led up to the point where the physical violence is even possible. So there is the mental and emotional abuse. There's the gaslighting that happens. And for those that don't know what gaslighting is, that term is referencing a movie. It's an old movie, yes, where the husband was moving objects. The wife would put an object down and the husband would go behind her and move the object. And when she went back to look for it, he would convince her that her memory was bad or that she had some mental issues. So there are all of these different actions and behaviors that can happen that by the time the physical violence happens, the victim is oftentimes in a state of they don't even know who they are.
Right.
They are not aware that there are options other than this.
It's very, you can compare it almost one-on-one with the methods used in slavery times. This is exactly what was going on in dehumanizing people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So by the time, like you say, the first blow hits, you are not you anymore. So you don't know front or back. And right.
And I mean, there are times where the victim doesn't leave because financial abuse is a part of the equation. So if the person that is the perpetrator is the one in charge of the money, then the victim may not have access to funds to be able to leave. If the person that is the perpetrator is, if the victim is the primary breadwinner and the one that is the perpetrator is putting those types of things out in the atmosphere about, oh, we're supposed to be partners. You're supposed to be helping me. So there are all these things that get said and these little things that people think are little behaviors that slowly chip away at you.
Right.
And
it's about power.
Exactly.
It's about power. Yeah.
So sometimes by the time there's an opportunity to leave,
it's
not even clear to the victim that it is an opportunity.
Right. You went. I'm not sure if it's the same one, but I found you online telling this in an international setting, and it's a long poem that you read. I selected a clip out of it, but I think it says a lot that we need to talk about. Here we go. Let's have a watch.
First time I ever put the story of my childhood sexual abuse on paper. So it's in the book. It starts on page 126, and it is titled On First Times. The first time I was raped, the act was not as painful as the accusation. The implication that somehow I must be at fault. More than 29 years later, I remember what I was wearing as if it were yesterday. I never wore it again, never washed it again, never trusted my mother again. And he was light-skinned, and this was the 80s, so light-skinned was in. I was nervous. I hadn't seen him before. He thought I was cute. I didn't believe it. I was dark-skinned and skinny and dark and too Christian and dark and big forehead and dark and big lips and dark, too dark to be the right shade for light-skinned to holler at. I avoided eye contact, straightened my shirt. I remember what I was wearing, my favorite outfit. Until that day, I never wore it again. I think I told you that already. I still don't trust my mother, and she don't like me. I don't think she ever has. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, He was light-skinned.
Kimberly, there's so much to unpack there. I don't even know where to begin. Let's begin with your mother.
So that was from when I was 17 years old. I was raped. I was coming home from school one day, and this strange man followed me home and actually raped me in my parents' home. And when I went to tell my mother about it, as a lot of people do, immediately before I got to tell her that I had been raped, I said, "Mom, a man followed me home from school today." And the first thing she said was, "Well, I knew you shouldn't have been wearing that outfit." So immediately that shut me down. I never did finish telling her because I felt like I wasn't going to be heard. So the result
accusation
of that,
was worse, like you were saying, than
exactly.
the act.
Exactly. And later on in the poem, I talk about how I wound up in the hospital. I caught what was called salpingitis at the time, which is known to cause sterility. So my children are a miracle and a blessing. I have 4 children. They're all grown. So I was told that I may never have children. So I wound up in the hospital. I was out of school for the first month of school or so. And we never talked about how I got sick. As a matter of fact, it was assumed later on, I was told that I was fast, so the assumption was I had voluntarily entered into sex with somebody, and that was how this happened. So, and I have since forgiven my mother for the way that she responded to that. I recognize that a lot of times we just don't have the tools. I don't know if maybe something happened in her past that just triggered something for her. I'm not sure. But I have made it a point to be present for my children, even if it's difficult for my children, for other children, even if it's hard to hear what happened. I've made it a point of being present to be able to hear and validate their voices and their stories.
I think this is one of the things that hopefully will come out of the Me Too movement globally. Is the awareness that it is never her fault,
right?
And whatever, and this is hard for so many people to understand. Why do you think that is? Is this culture, or what is it?
I mean, the way that women are viewed in the world has always been, we won't even get into the different ways that the structure breaks down when you start to bring race into it, but just women in general are treated as if we are substandard to men. Right. And whatever race we're talking about, it doesn't even matter. That women are treated as if we are substandard to men. Women's bodies have been treated as if they are specifically for the pleasure of men. So when you look at the way that has happened, I see Adrian said male insecurity.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Male insecurity. So because of the way, and those of us in academia, we often use the word patriarchy, right? I try not to use those words too often in common spaces because I want language to be accessible to everybody.
Yes.
But just the way that rules and laws are set, when you look at the way that in the United States right now, a bunch of men, and specifically white men, are making laws around whether or not women can have abortions.
Exactly.
And, things like that.
Yeah.
So, the funny
thing is, though,
right.
The funny thing, though, historically, women were the ones in power. The world used to be matriarchal. We even say Mother Earth. We say Mother this, Mama that. So everything is Mother. And something changed, and we let them. Why did we even let them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would love to know. I am not sure where the shift came, and a lot of times where the original matriarchal structure was in African tribalism and African homes. So I think I would dare say at the point where we decided that we were going to work at everything being integrated, then that's probably one of the places where the breakdown in that understanding of the importance of women and the sacred space that is woman wound up becoming devalued. The
Well,
church is
Adrienne says the
definitely,
church. There you go.
yes. But even in looking at that, when you look at the way that things became integrated, that's where a lot of these breakdowns in understanding of who we are and what right looks like happened.
Exactly. We need to reclaim that, because we can see now in the turmoil the earth is in right now, the countries that are doing better than others are the ones led by women. Yay. I say New Zealand, I say Iceland, I say Bahamas these days.
Yes.
So we need to reclaim that. Let's make a special program on that one day, on how women can reclaim that. But I'm looking at the clock, Kim. We need to move forward a bit. This is the spot where I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, and I'm not giving you any chance to elaborate. You need to choose, and maybe at the end of it, depending on what the clock says, then I'll let you elaborate on 1, maybe 2 of them. All right? So you ready for this?
Ready.
All right. Question number 1: Jamaica or USA?
Jamaica.
Question number 2: poetry or activism?
Activism.
All right. Number 3: nothing like a good old World War III to stir things up a bit. Yes or no?
No.
Hard one. Number 4: to raise better humans, we need to raise better men. Yes or no?
Yes.
Is that a half yes or a yes?
No, that's a yes.
That's a yes.
Yes.
And the last of the 5 quick questions: what is the one thing, Kimberly McCrae, that you would never, ever, ever, ever do again?
Oh, you want me to answer that quickly?
Yep.
Man. I don't know.
You must.
I don't know how to narrow it down. Oh my gosh.
Not my problem.
I know, right? I would say take a job just to make money.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Apparently you once took a job and just for the money, and something went wrong.
Most of my life I worked just for the income, because you have to make money to live, right? But is this the one that I get to elaborate on?
Well, you can choose. So you choose. Which of these 5 would you like? And don't choose the easy ones.
Okay, I'll elaborate on this last one, since it's the one that took me the longest to give an answer to. I am at the point in my life where it is more important to me to be able to be 100% of who I am and to walk in my full authenticity. And a lot of times the places with the money don't have the room for me to be you. Exactly. So it's not worth it to me anymore.
Oh, I can relate so much. I mean, I did a lot of work that I enjoyed doing, but once I started being independent,
yeah.
Even in days when money didn't come in, I would always say, you know what, I prefer this to the other thing.
Yeah. Because at least I'm authentically myself, and I know that I have not compromised me at all.
Exactly. You know who you are, and that's what you portray. And people actually, don't you find that people now actually pay you for being you?
Exactly. Yes.
Isn't that a great thing?
It's wonderful.
All right. Let's move on, because this is where we're going to talk about who you are now and what you do. But first of all, it's that poetry season, I call it, here in Jamaica, which is actually right now. I'm seeing Yassis Safari, Muta Baruka. You joined Yassis's poetry festivals twice, I believe. Once Jamaica Poetry Festival and once Poetry in Motion.
Yes.
And the latter one is 2019 is when you and I actually met very, very quickly in passing.
Yes.
So you got invited over to Jamaica, or you were already here, and you tell people what a Jamaican Poetry Festival is like.
Everything Jamaica is just celebration and good energy and the vibes. And so the Jamaican Poetry Festivals were incredible. Everybody was warm and welcoming, and people are on the edge of their seats, listening intently on every word that's
Participating.
said. Yes, participating, and there's rhythm that comes with the poetry, and sometimes there's singing, and sometimes there's chanting, and there's this movement, and just the energy and the synergy just kind of has its own rhythm and movement to it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's the stuff to make you happy. And
Yes.
let me do a little promo for Yasses, because this coming Sunday is another virtual edition of Poetry Emotion, the 19th edition, I believe it is. And well,
Yeah.
due to world happenings, it's still online. But oh yes, I can hardly wait. And I know he's looking forward to doing it live again. And you must come again. Who am I
Yes.
to invite you? But you must, and it's fun. And Muta Baruka, for those who don't know, give us a quick short bio on Muta and why he's so important in the poetry world.
Muta Baruka is one of the most straightforward, outspoken poets that I have ever heard or known. He does not cut corners. He is not afraid to speak his mind, and he lives what he speaks 24/7. I don't care what forum that you see him in, he is actively being the change that he wants to see in the world, and he's actively living out the poetry that he speaks.
Exactly. Muta forever. And he's got 2 radio programs in which he actually educates the world on stuff that you and I are talking about today, about the history of power. Muta does a lot of that.
Even the role that he played in the movie Sankofa was true to who he is in real life. It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yes. I can't have you on the program and not ask you to do us a little poem live. I'm sure you will agree.
I absolutely will agree. About how much time do I have to do a little poem live?
Could it be 3 minutes-ish?
Absolutely. Yes,
Great.
I can do that. So there is a poem that I love to offer to people. I wrote it specifically to center healing, and it's called Anthem for You. I understand that some days you will nurse lonely. You will argue with mirror, swallowing distorted images, telling yourself, I am not this brand of ugly. You will select colors that say available and draw on a face that convinces you that the last person that doubted your beauty was both blind and stupid. I fear in those moments you may forget in the middle of lonely, there is one. You are the one who has overcome insurmountable obstacles, maybe not the same as mine, but it was your mountain to climb and you climbed it, scaled it to the peak and met with thin air but thickened resolve. You are a perfectly sculpted masterpiece of flaws and failures that makes you irreplaceable. You are not the catchline to a phrase. Nor are you the chorus to the latest song. You are a bridge, the bridge between a broken yesterday and a whole tomorrow. You will never pass this way again, and you are glad about it. But this way will miss you. Will covet your strong stance and sturdy stride as they try to pull you back. They won't even know why, but they will try nonetheless, and you will not let them. You will keep walking. Will not exert energy trying to run from that which cannot follow. It cannot follow. They cannot follow. You cannot go back. They cannot follow. You cannot go back. They cannot follow, and you will not go back. You are made of more than tearful moments and well-crafted insults. You are affected by words that sting, by words carelessly placed, words carefully placed to harm you. You will acknowledge all of it, but never crumble. You are sand, you are wind, you are waves. At times, white-capped and wily, you are waves. Sometimes silent, you are waves. Ebb and flow, you are waves, and at the same time, you are God's rendition of peace be still. You will lift your hands to the sky, reminding the sun, this spirit has created you. You will walk as if a million sunsets are bowing at your feet. You, unbreakable you. and your spirit will be here. You will be here long after your spirit has evacuated this shell that you have painted perfection. I understand that some days you will nurse lonely, but you will be defined by the snow angels you left behind when you fell, stretched, steadied yourself, and got back up again. Peace.
I'm sure everybody's clapping everywhere, watching. Wow,
Thank
wow,
you.
wow. I'm sweating with exertion. Oh, there's such a great catchphrase. In the middle of lonely, there is one. How do you come up with that, Kim?
I don't know.
No.
It came to me one day in a moment where struggle, just in a moment of struggle, I sat and I just thought about what I was dealing with, and I was feeling lonely, and I sat and I really thought about the word. One of my undergraduate degrees is English. So I love words. I love writing words. I love hearing words, taking them apart and figuring out what they mean. And I realized in the middle of the word lonely, there is the word one. And it just completely flipped the word for me.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. Suddenly it has a whole new meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. Wow. And so the people saying, Anamika says it's amazing, which it is.
Thank you.
My brother certainly wants us to reclaim our position as women because he feels like a motherless child since Angela Merkel left.
I know that's right.
Applause from DJ Conscious and
Thank
Adrienne,
you.
who is my eldest sister. Where can we find this poem? She asks.
My book
Your
is
book,
Dust Bunnies and Sparrows. Yes.
We're going to talk about your books in a short little while, Kimberly.
Okay.
But let's talk about the other stuff you do first. You do a lot of stuff. Here's you all strident. You got your Ministry of Black Women's Self-Care. You got your Press Towards Freedom. There's a golden line in all that you do, but I want you to tell us.
So with Press Towards Freedom, I'll start there because ultimately it is an umbrella organization under which I have a lot of initiatives and a lot of programming. So Press Towards Freedom Transformational Life Services is an LLC registered in the state of in New York. And I do work pretty much internationally around helping people to figure out what self-care can look like, help walking alongside of people and organizations and businesses to make sure that we are becoming our best selves. So for some people, that equals incorporating self-care into their lives. For some people, it equals writing that book that you've been really laboring over and haven't gotten done yet. For some people, it involves dreaming and developing life goals and figuring out how to bring your life together in some way that's going to be meaningful to you and making the legacy that you want to leave in the world. The Ministry of Black Women's Self-Care is one of the programs that is under Press Towards Freedom. And I specifically create space for Black women to gather monthly where we can be our absolute authentic selves and take care of ourselves without the burden that the rest of the world puts on us to take care of everybody else.
So that means self-care on the individual level, but also as a group, group of Black people, Black women. The notion of self-care, it's taken, it's growing now, but what baffles me about it is that there is so much need for self-care. So what does it say about society as a whole that self-care is such a big part of our lives these days?
It says, well, I believe that it says that a lot of us are realizing that we've been living some very unhealthy lives and we've been normalizing some very unhealthy things, and it's not sustainable. We're looking at Black women in particular dying at very early ages and being stricken with illnesses that we have a hard time recovering from because we are not given permission to take care of ourselves. So that space was designed as a revolutionary space that says we're taking permission and giving ourselves permission to take care of ourselves.
Exactly, because that's the question I was going to ask you. Does self-care mean not asking anymore for permission? And I think that's what you say.
Self-care means so many things. One of the main things that I really want people to get is when we talk about self-care, there are some kind of go-to things. Oh, get a massage, go on vacation, get some alone time, and the reality is that a massage to someone who has been traumatized by touch is not self-care. It's a traumatic event.
Yeah, it is.
Going on vacation is not accessible for everybody.
Right.
Getting alone time, I was a single parent of 4. Alone time wasn't happening. So, just having to come out of some of those customary ways that we qualify self-care, because self-care is accessible to everyone. But if we keep it in those boxes, it becomes inaccessible to large numbers of people.
Exactly. Evelyn is agreeing with you 100%. Grabbing permission is what you're saying.
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
even don't even say permission, because there is nobody who can give me permission, yes or no.
Right.
But
Right.
I know I'm in a privileged position to be able to say that. So
Mhm.
it's great. How do women respond to this in your groups?
So many people have said that it's been helpful. There are some people that have been with me for 4 and 5 years on this self-care journey, and it's becoming a regular, everyday part of their lives, which is the goal. So we're becoming creative about the ways that we bring self-care into our day. And one of the things I encourage people to do, specifically Black women, is define yourself. So who am I today? And for a lot of Black women, the first time I ask them that, they don't have an
They don't know.
answer.
Right.
They've never had the opportunity to do that before. So realizing a lot of the ways that we move in this world, we are taking on the definitions that other people have placed on us,
Right.
and we're moving with those instead. I love what Adrienne said. The
Yes.
difference between selfishness and welfare is often hard to see for many. I encourage people to see selfishness and self-fullness. So self-care is being self-full.
Full.
Yes, being selfish is doing something to the exclusion, to
And
the intentional
exactly,
exclusion.
excluding
Yes.
others. Right.
Yes.
Good
Yep.
point you're making,
Taking
Adrienne.
care of me has nothing to do with excluding you. If you want to take it that way, then you can, but it has to do with me.
This is my mantra. What I do in my life has nothing to do with yours. So stop.
Yes.
Stop being irritated by the way I live my life. Who the hell do you think you are?
Exactly. And the monthly gatherings are online.
They are?
So yes.
Yes.
So I can provide the information for, I can send you the information.
Please
to be
do,
able
and we'll
to
add it
share
in the
it.
comments to all these
Yes.
live streams.
And if people follow me on Facebook, they'll see I post reminders about it. So the next one is going to be March 16th.
Excellent. March 16th, follow Kimberly McCrae on Facebook and you'll know all of
Yes.
that. You've written a bunch of books, Kim. This is just 2. They
Yes.
must mean something to you because you sent them to me.
Yes, so those are the 2 that are my, I'm the only author. So 31 Day Reboot, I wrote as a 31-day journey, changing your inner self to create a better outer self. So there is a tool for each day of a 31-day month. You can
Wow.
take the tool each day and then write notes and come to some realizations about the ways that you've been structuring your life on the inside that are impacting the way your life happens on the outside.
And I believe if people know that is the way it works, things are going to be better in the world, aren't
Yes,
they?
I
Yeah.
believe so. I do.
Mhm.
And then Dust Bunnies and Sparrows that's my baby. I wrote that book as a poetic declaration. It says a poetic declaration of liberation from/through domestic violence. So at the point where in 2016, my children were just about grown. My youngest daughter was 17, my son was 16, and I got married. And their father got angry when he heard about me getting married. He showed up in North Carolina and turned our lives upside down, where he just started doing, it was domestic violence 101, the gaslighting, the trying to tell his story his way to people to turn them against me. And by the time he was finished, he was in town for 2 months. By the time he was done, none of my children lived with me. Wow. And I have not seen my youngest son since 2016 because he took him with him.
With him.
Yes.
These are the 2 children that he
These are my
fathered.
two oldest.
Yes. So these
Yes.
are his children.
No, these are
No.
not his children. My
No?
two youngest are his children. These are my two oldest,
Oldest.
Dominique and Tashik. Yes,
Exactly. I'm
Dominique
sorry.
is
Yes.
Dominique is the one that is pregnant now, my third grandbaby, and Tashik has a daughter as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is them when they were young, and they are
Yes.
now older. This is another grandchild of yours with another daughter. Your life is
So-
complicated. Help me out.
So Dynasty is actually Dominique's daughter.
It's Dominique's daughter. Yes.
Yes.
It's the other.
She's just very close to her auntie.
This,
Yes.
right? Exactly.
Yes.
So this is her Auntie Tarja.
Yes. So
Mhm.
that's my youngest daughter. That's one of the children that my ex took. Well, he didn't take her. She was so upset by everything that happened that she moved out, but she did not go with him.
Mhm.
And then the other picture is me and Dynasty. I call her my grand kiss.
Grandkids.
So that's me
Yeah.
and Dynasty, and we have the adventures of Dynasty and Gigi. Whenever we get together, then it's the adventures of Dynasty and Gigi.
Great. And how old is Dynasty now?
Dynasty is 7. She's going to be
7.
8 this year. Yes.
Yes. And your son, Isaiah?
Yes. So Isaiah is 21. He is in the Air Force and he's stationed in Korea. And he is the one that I have not seen since he was 16. But we do communicate via text.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping to be able to reunite with him sometime soon. Of course, with COVID, it's really because Korea does not play. They require that you quarantine and so we at some point I'm hoping this year to be able to reunite with him.
Well, fingers crossed for that.
Yes.
All this the sad history that you're sharing with us here, that must have had an impact specifically on Isaiah, because for some reason I believe young men are more susceptible to these things, and
Mhm.
especially if it's the father in a certain role.
Mhm.
Do you care to elaborate? I'm not going to force you to, because it's his
Oh
story.
no.
Mm?
I'm fine with elaborating. So I'm sure he has been impacted. I have not sat down and talked with him about the whole impact of everything that happened.
Mhm.
At the time that it happened, he was 16 and he was somewhat rebellious. So, he was in that phase, and it made it very easy for his father to show up and just kind of turn everything against me, like I was the bad parent, because he was already rebelling. I was the custodial parent. So of course we were bumping heads, and it made it very easy for his father to drive a wedge between us and take him with him. The action was illegal. I had legal custody, and their father was in the military. He was active Army for the US, and he took him to his military base in Hawaii, and I did not have any information about where he was,
How
an
is that even
address.
possible?
So that's, they let him enroll him in school. He had no birth certificate, no social security card, none of that. And they let him take him and bring this child that he had never had with him before to the military base and enroll him in school and develop a whole life with him. And nobody questioned what happened.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the military actually facilitated this.
Yeah,
Kim.
they protect their own. They do. They do. Because there were several times throughout the domestic violence journey where he would get his 30 days leave. The military allots 30 days leave a year for military. So he would get his 30-day leave, show up in North Carolina, and would wreak havoc. One time he showed up, ran my car off the road, and then runs and winds up. He leaves and goes back to Hawaii, where he was stationed. And there were warrants for his arrest in North Carolina. And the military said they would not extradite him because the warrants were not for felonies.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it was this constant, he would pop up whenever he felt like, and he would go and tell his commanding officer whatever he wanted to, and they would believe him. And he got away with not paying child support for about 4 years, until finally the judge got tired and said, this woman has shown up here for 4 years and has not received a dime of child support, and took the information that he had from the letters that he had sent and ordered child support that way, because he just wasn't complying with the process. So yeah, there are a lot of ways that and Annemiek said that's a men's world. Yes,
Yeah,
it
that's
is
what she
very
says.
much a men's
Yeah.
world. Yeah, yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It is. Apart from the financial struggles that you had with this, it must have been very hard for you to, to find your way back into Isaiah's life.
Yes, it's been challenging. It's been very challenging because it's kind of like it feels at times like both of us are tiptoeing around the situation, because we've not discussed in depth why things happened the way they happened or the impact that it's had. But knowing Isaiah and seeing some of the ways that his relationship with his sister, with Tarjay, has been impacted, because they were really, really close before this happened, and the ways that this played out, their relationship is fractured now. So I know that talking to Tarjay and hearing the trauma in her part of the story, and understanding that a lot of the ways that Isaiah has behaved and is behaving are because of the trauma in his part of the story. So there's a lot there that needs to be healed.
Wow, it's incredible. My sister once again says she can relate. She's had stuff like this happen to her.
Yeah,
not in any way as much as you have, but she understands.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Adrienne.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, Kim, what a story! And look at you now. Look at you now. And do you feel the same way? You seem like a woman now, in control of self, in control of destiny.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel?
It is. I feel very much in control of self. There was a period where I wouldn't have been able to share any of that story without breaking down crying. But I think when we get to the point where we own our story, then it makes it possible to be able to move forward and write a different ending. So, just being able to say, yes, that's part of my story, and all of what has happened has informed the way that my activism is, the way that my advocacy is. It's informed my emotional intelligence when dealing with people. It's informed some of the initiatives that I do under Press Towards Freedom. One is around domestic violence survivors. It's called Breathe Again. And one is around incarcerated people and their families. And it's Loving Beyond, I believe it's called, and I should know the name of it off the top of my head, but Love Beyond Walls. I think that's what it's called. I cannot remember exactly. But I do work to make sure that these marginalized communities and these communities of people that are often mislabeled or misunderstood or misheard or not heard at all, that somebody is making an active attempt to actually hear and address and engage the things that are important to them.
Wow. Well, one thing I can promise you, I told you earlier that I was part of 2 international women's conferences. One was in the Netherlands, one was in Taiwan. I believe there's one coming, next one coming up in Australia. Okay. So I have my little network there, and I am going to drop your name, Kimberly, because your story and the way that you tell it, I think it's invaluable to people who are on the road but are not quite there where they should be yet. And this little push you can give them, I think, is invaluable. So I will be dropping your name.
Thank you. I would be honored to be a part of that.
You should be a part of that. And in fact, this is something you and I could do here in Jamaica.
And I want to. Yes.
Our mutual friend Kabuma at Karoo.
Yes.
You and me, we should do this thing.
Yes.
Here in
Gaubault
Jamaica.
and I have actually been talking about it for a while. She interviewed me at the beginning of COVID on her radio show.
Yes.
And one of the things that people have not talked about enough is the ways that domestic violence numbers have skyrocketed during COVID. Imagine being in what is it? What's the word? Being at home.
In quarantine with
your abuser.
Yes.
And having nowhere to go, because by law, you cannot leave this place where you and your perpetrator are residing. People often don't think about that.
Exactly.
And even knowing that I don't believe that there are any shelters in the
no.
Montego Bay end of the island, right?
And
Yeah.
Jamaica was not represented during those two international conferences, and they should be.
They need
So
to be,
I'm
definitely.
taking this upon myself, and I'm glad to hear that you're taking it upon yourself. We should work together,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
what my Jamaican friends don't realize is that the power of this island is actually in hands of the women, but they don't
Yes.
realize.
Yes.
We need to
Yep.
tell them. We need to tell
Yes.
them. Kimberly, look at the time. This is
I know.
the segment in the program where I tell my watchers, my viewers, that next episode of Poca TV Live will be on March the 25th, the last Friday of March, and I'm hoping to be able to do a tribute to Mr. Fabisak, who was my history teacher and geography teacher and social studies teacher when I was in the American school in Brazil. And Mr. Fabisak made such a great impact on so many young lives, and he passed away a couple of weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to doing a tribute with his past students. I'm in contact with a couple of them. I hope to find a family member who could share some background info on Mr. Ed, as we used to call him. Fingers crossed. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but I'm going to do my utmost best to do a tribute on good old Mr. Fabisak, because he really did. I wouldn't be who I am without him and another teacher I had, Mrs. Gayrus. They actually got me on the route to becoming a journalist. Kimberly,
Yes.
we've touched on so many things now, but I think everything is linked in what you tell us.
Yes.
So let's try and do a conclusion to this. What is it we need to be striving for as humans, as parents, as sons and daughters? What is the thing you would want to leave us with, the thought?
We need to be striving towards taking care of ourselves, and in taking care of ourselves, making sure that that extends to the way that we interact with the people that we share space with. We are sharing this world. We're spending our lives together, and we're sharing this world. And whatever, I think that if there's one thing that COVID should have taught us, everything that one person does impacts everybody. So making sure that we're making decisions that are not negatively impacting the people that we're sharing space with or sharing this world with. I think that if we can move and operate in loving ourselves, that love becomes then something external that extends to everyone that we come in contact with.
Yeah. And somehow I would like to add to that what we need to reclaim as humans is the notion that something that's good for me does not necessarily have to mean that I'm oppressing you or I'm taking away from you. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. During the 5 quick questions, we touched on the one, raising better humans means raising better men. Your thoughts on that to end this program with, because that will move nicely into how I want to end this program.
I gave the answer that I gave. I gave the answer yes, because I think that a lot of times the ways that men have dominated in this world, as you mentioned earlier, at one point there were matriarchal society, like predominantly matriarchal societies, and now all of a sudden there's this patriarchal stuff that kind of overshadows everything. Somewhere in there we have to take ownership for the ways that we have either participated in it or the ways that we have been complicit and overlooked it and allowed the shift to happen that has been very damaging to a lot of people in this world. So I think that in our taking responsibility for ourselves and taking the responsibility to better educate our children, our boys, our sons, and take some of the responsibility off of the girls. Because I promise you, it doesn't matter what a girl is wearing. If a man wants to rape her, he's going to. Let's just be real. So making sure that we are educating our sons to understand that this is sacred. This is this that you pass through to come into this world is sacred. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would create this dynamic of raising better men.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you so very much for, for this, but for this whole hour and almost a half. It's been wonderful having you as my guest, Kimberly. Yeah.
You are so good. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it was my pleasure having you. And I'm looking forward to that day when we actually meet up here in Mobay and we start making those plans, because I'm a woman of action.
Yes.
So I come up with a thing and I want to do it. So let's do that.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to say, this is where I say goodbye to you. Please hang around in the orange room, Kimberly. And while I close up this program, thanks again for joining me. Thank you. So all that's left for me to say to my regulars and the people watching later is I'm going to play out with a poem written by Rudyard Kipling called If, and it is read by Tom O'Bedlam. And this is actually exactly what Kim was saying, how to raise better people. In this case, he wrote it for his son, but it will work for daughters as well. Just be who you think you should be, according to Rudyard Kipling. So that's it for now. Hope to see you again on March the 25th. Until such time, be good, be nice, and stay safe. I'm out of here. Bye-bye for now.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but are none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.